Today I'm talking about three 1940s supernatural comedies. And the names of those three films are Topper Returns, I Married a Witch, and Blithe Spirit. First up is Topper Returns. This is a 1941 film, and the basic premise is this young woman is going to meet her estranged father for the first time. So she brings her friend along and heads off to his mansion. But whilst there, the best friend gets murdered. So her ghost teams up with the neighbor for some reason to figure out who murdered her. And I really enjoyed this film. It was just so delightful and fun. It has very strong Clue vibes, the movie. I'm sure it definitely took inspiration from this. It also has very strong Scooby-Doo vibes, which again, I'm sure took inspiration from this. The special effects look so good. Like there were just so many things floating in the air. I couldn't see the wires. There were like clothes floating at one point. That one looked really good. They also had like fading in and out of scenes. And for the most part, I didn't even like notice if they did like a jump cut or something. I was really impressed with how they did that. I legit really loved the lead. Like she was so delightful and charming and spunky. And when she died, I legitimately felt bad for her. I knew someone was gonna die and I figured it was gonna be her because she had the most personality. But then I was like, no, don't die. Even though I knew it needed to happen for the story to happen. All of the humor really worked for me. Essentially every single joke made me laugh. It is a whodunit murder mystery, and the whodunits isn't the #1 most obvious answer, but it is a fairly obvious answer. So that's really my only criticism of the film, is I wish they just kind of would have done more with that. The other thing I dislike about the movie is the name, Topper Returns. That's the name of the neighbor, and like, yeah, he's a main character, but like, it's dumb. Should have named it something either in relation to the woman who died, or like the manor, or just like something about the mystery in general. Despite those two little things, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, really loved it, and would totally recommend it. If you want a good, fun, silly, spooky time that's very reminiscent of Clue and Scooby-Doo, look no further. This movie is so delightful. I love it a lot. Definitely recommend. Next up is I Married a Witch. This is a 1942 film, and the basic premise is this witch and her father return to this town to terrorize the descendant of the man who terrorized them back in the day. And again, it's a lot of fun. It was so delightful and charming. I really loved the witch. Jennifer is the character's name. She was played by Veronica Lake, who was like 18 or 20 years old when they made this, and like the character feels just like this pretentious brat, just like trying to get her way with stuff, and like Veronica nailed it. I'm sure she wasn't acting too hard being so young, but it was perfect for the character. It really made her so much fun to watch. What really got me too was just how much she was constantly trying to seduce the male lead of the movie, because that could easily give off the wrong vibes. But what I think makes it work here is how she's very persistent with it, but never aggressive. And like she totally could be aggressive because she is this big powerful witch, but she instead, in the first half, she's just trying to use her natural charm to get this guy, but he's just so confused by what's happening. And then in the second half, when things kind of change, he's trying to hide how into it he is. What I also like about the second half is like how she's trying to seduce him changes in a very subtle way, but it still feels distinctly different, even though she's kind of doing similar things. That was just masterfully written. So yeah, that was just lots of fun and very funny. Also, I like the smoke form that the witch and her dad take. It was just a lot of fun. So yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie, and again, would totally recommend it. It's a delightful, fun, silly, great time, just with really good vibes. Not necessarily spooky, but still a good, witchy, fun time. So yeah, want a nice, charming little film? This is a nice, charming little film. And lastly is Blithe Spirit. This is a 1945 film, and the basic premise is this writer hires a medium lady to contact a spirit because he's like writing a story about a medium. But wouldn't you know it, she accidentally brings his dead wife's spirit back into the world, and then hijinks ensue. I really like the premise of this movie. I think it's so fun to have the dead wife come back into the scene and How does the current wife handle this? How does the husband to both handle this? He definitely had feelings for her. They were married for a while. So like, how does he balance having these two women in his life? That's just delightful. There were definitely a lot of moments that I really enjoyed, like when he's in the middle of a conversation with the alive wife and then the dead wife says something. So he responds to the dead wife, but then the alive wife thinks that he's talking to her, so she responds accordingly. It's lots of misunderstandings. That in and of itself is so much fun. I feel like the third act really petered out though. Like there wasn't really character growth or catharsis. It's just kind of the same jokes repeated. I mean, like there was a little bit of character growth right at the very end, but not enough that was satisfying. And like I really thought there was gonna be more like character development with the alive wife as she's like learning more about her husband through the lens of interacting with the dead wife, but nothing really happened there. I feel like the alive wife became a one-note character once the dead wife returned, and that was disappointing because I really liked the alive wife. I just kept waiting for something more to happen, but it just never came. That being said though, I did still have a good time with this movie. The cast was definitely very good. The effects really did hold up. The ideas that they covered were really interesting. I just think with like a little bit of tweaking, this could be something really, really incredible. I know a lot of people do like this movie a lot, and I definitely understand why, but I just feel like the third act just needs a bit more work, and then it would really work for me. That being said though, I would still recommend it. It definitely is not as great as the other two movies I talked about today, but there's still a lot of fun to be had with this movie, and it's definitely still worth a watch. Just go in with a little bit lower expectations, and you should still have a delightful, fun experience. So yes, I totally enjoyed this movie, and I would for sure recommend it. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up, we got Topper Returns, sitting number 64 in the Really Like section. And then not too terribly far behind is I Married a Witch, sitting at number 72, again in the Really Like section. And then bringing up the rear is Blithe Spirit, sitting at number 98 in the Quite Like section. And this is a total of 231 old movies so far this year.